What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks. It's Brian Hines back as always with Alex Barth in day one of, it's not tampering anymore. They call it the negotiation window, I believe. They got rid of that ugly, nasty T tampering word, but
no, I'm still calling it that. This is like them trying to get rid of the tush push. If they don't want me to call it that, it's all the more incentive for me to call it that.
It's always tampering because everyone is always tampering. I do like how now, though, they wait like 20 minutes until everyone starts tweeting out the deals, so it looks a little bit, cleaner and clearer. It looks like people are following the rules here, but the moves are off and running, and the Patriots have been busy, really going back about 24 hours ago. Last night, Sunday night, they got to work with an external addition, a re-signing. They've signed, I believe it's up to 7 players on Monday. So a lot going on. We'll break down all of it. We're going to kind of go chronologically through all of this, and then we'll give big thoughts and what's next to kind of wrap this up. But it did start last night, again, right around 24 hours ago with an external addition. Harold Landry, edge rusher, 3 years. I believe it was right under $50 million total. It was right around that $17 million AAV that he was earning in Tennessee. Now we don't have the exact details of any of these contracts. So that's another thing. You see this number, it's an agent number, right? Like these are going to be structured a lot differently, but right. 3 years for Harold Landry. He was released by Tennessee, so that's why he was able to sign early there, just get right to it. A guy we talked a lot about, from his history with Mike Vrabel. He was a second draft pick back in 2018. He played at Boston College. The need for a pass rusher was big time on this Patriots roster. So that one made a lot of sense. And they got that done before free agency even technically started for the rest of the league this afternoon, signing Harold Landry there last night.
Yeah, and that one made sense. We kind of knew all along that one was going to make sense, and they got it done. They needed to address their pass rush. They addressed it. I have my reservations about Landry's 29 years old. He's been a little banged up, so I don't think he's like this be-all, end-all fix, right? I don't think he used to level it like even a Josh Sweat would have been, but he gives them something on the edge. He gives them somebody who can get after the quarterback, and they needed that. I don't think they broke the bank to do it. They probably had to pay a little more than they wanted to. It sounded like he wanted more money than he ultimately got, and they kind of had to talk him into it. But solid move. Wasn't doing cartwheels or anything, but it's not a bad signing. Yep. Which is, by the way, going to be kind of a theme for how I react to a lot of these signings today.
And it really set the tone, like theme-wise. Like a lot of these guys we're going to talk about, veteran players who have familiarity with the coaching staff. A couple of them are, Super Bowl winning experience. Landry isn't one of those, but that really seemed to be their focus as they're starting to build this culture and Mike Vrabel builds his team. And, Elliott Wolf talked last year, they kind of struck out in free agency because they didn't have like thorough intel. A lot of these guys, they've been with Josh McDaniels. They've been with Mike Vrabel. They've been with Terrell Williams. They know these guys really well. They know what they're about. They are a lot of guys who look like they play like hard, tough, physical football. Like you can see this really Mike Vrabel starting to set his culture, build his culture. Again, a couple guys with Super Bowl winning experience. And I think that's big, easy to compare to the Commanders last year. Like that was kind of the strategy they took. The Patriots did have some bigger money signings than the Commanders did last year, but that is a big theme kind of throughout the day, really today, that a lot of these guys are familiar with the staff, and they did kick that off with Landry last night.
It does feel in line with that Commanders model. Like I do think that is kind of what they're doing. The nuts and bolts free agents, not the guys that are stars. And there weren't that many stars available this offseason, but guys that are going to come in and maybe not set the ceiling, but raise your floor as a whole.
I know they probably added 5 or 6 starters over the last 24 hours, right? And your roster was what it was. Like a lot of these guys are obviously going to be starters, but you have to go from bad to average before you can go from average to great. And free agency is the good time to do that. So Harold Landry was the first signing. Again, a guy we talked a lot about. The pass rush win rate is out there. It wasn't good. It was one of the worst edge rushers in the league, but he was still productive in the sack department, still really good run defender. as well. So he's going to be a good piece to add to that edge group that you needed bodies there in addition to Keon White and Anthony Jennings. And then shortly after the Landry signing, we got our first re-signing of this period, and that was tight end Austin Hooper. 1 year, $5 million. I believe it maxed out at 7 or 7.5.
That sounds right.
7 max value. So again, guy they're familiar with. He was here last year. Big help for Drake May. He played in Tennessee for a year under Vrabel, played for a year in Vegas under Josh McDaniels. I would still like to probably add one in the draft, a good tight end draft class, but good to bring back some familiarity in a guy who was pretty consistent in your offense last year in Austin Hooper.
Yeah, I don't know if people realize this. They might have, because I've already said it a few times today. But between Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, the Patriots as a team were 6th in both tight end catches and tight end yards in the NFL last year. Like, they were one of the better collective tight end rooms. If they were hell bent on Tyler Warren, this doesn't make sense. But outside of that, a guy that's reliable, a guy that's consistent, a guy that clearly had built some chemistry with Drake May. It makes a ton of sense to bring him back. The only question I have is, he came in last year with all that experience with Alex Van Pelt, and that was kind of the calling card. He did play for Josh McDaniels for like half a year in Vegas, so still some familiarity, but he's a guy who I still think he'll play. He'll be involved, but how does his usage change, and can he get on the same page with Josh McDaniels like he did with Alex Van Pelt?
Yeah. And I just think he seemed like a big help and a big fan of Drake May, right? Like off the field, even on the field, Drake was talking like he was one of the guys that helped them through some of those longer play calls. So just a good veteran to bring back. And again, it's 1 year, $5 million. So you're not, excuse me, you're not breaking the bank with that one to keep Hooper there back here this year. But those were the 2 signings last night. If we're going chronologically, do we want to just do the signings or do we want to do the misses too? Because the next is, if we're going in order, the next is 2 wide receiver misses, but we could circle back with that at the end if you want to.
Well, no, let's go through the day. Let's take people through the day.
All right. So after the 2 signings last night, we had the news of your guy, DK Metcalf, was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 2nd-round pick, and he signed a 5-year, $150 million extension shortly after the trade. And then this morning, Chris Godwin, one of the first guys off the board, when the 12 o'clock window opened, 3 years, $66 million back to Tampa. Seemed like he left $20 million on the table, and that $20 million from the New England Patriots, based off how Schefter and Rappaport were talking about this. So doesn't sound like they were very interested in Metcalf, but they were really all in on Chris Godwin. Again, a big offer, over $20 million than what he signed for, to try to get him to leave Tampa. He obviously didn't want to do that. So they took their one swing at a wide receiver, but they missed both of those guys. And now they're with Mack Hollins right now, who we'll get to later, but that's the lone wide receiver edition of the day.
Yeah, on Godwin first, because it's quicker. I know I kind of hammered this all week last week, that 9 times out of 10 in free agency across all sports, the most money gets it done. Chris Godwin was the 10th out of 10, I guess. Like, they tried there. He didn't want to leave Tampa. He's comfortable. He's got a good situation opposite Mike Evans with Baker Mayfield. Sucks, but what can you do? Like, that's just a matter of, the Patriots are going to have to start proving some things on their own, winning games. The new facility will help, things like that. That one maybe goes back to that report card. The DK Metcalf one, like, I'm kind of bummed, and I think it was Phil Perry who reported the Patriots didn't make an offer. They could have. I think he was, they had an opportunity to at least make it very hard for him to say no. They could have put more money on the table. I know the Steelers put a lot of money on the table, but this was the point, right? He wanted a warm weather city and a Super Bowl contender with a quarterback. Instead, he got a cold weather city with no quarterback and a team that's been spinning their wheels wild card and done for a decade.
But he's got $150 million to buy coats and hand warmers now.
Exactly. So, that makes me think, if the Patriots did put the money in front of them and their 2nd-round pick is better than the Steelers' 2nd-round pick, there may have been a deal to be had. They maybe could have had him if they actually got involved. So he was their best chance to add that true coverage dictating Tuesday morning meeting wide receiver this offseason. They've missed again. This is now 3 years in a row they've missed. They could still add. There's still the guys they can add. Brandon Ayuk, in theory, is still out there. We'll see what happens with T. Higgins, but they miss on him. They miss on Adams. You go back last year, Brandon Ayuk, Calvin Ridley 2 years ago, DeAndre Hopkins. Like, they still can't get that guy. This was their chance to get that guy, and I think it was a missed opportunity. Who knows if he ultimately would have come here, right? If they offer him 160 over 5, and again, it's a better pick, does he come here? I don't know. I would have liked to make him turn that down, though, at the very least, because they would be a better football team, I believe, had they made that move. And I still think they could have made all the moves today that they made today on top of that DK Metcalf move. Now, they might be done, right? We're still kind of waiting on a left tackle and maybe some other moves. I think if you add DK to the mix, this is kind of it. But I feel pretty good if this was it with DK Metcalf. They still need a left tackle. We'd be going to the draft, but they would have answered wide receiver definitively. Pass rush, they didn't answer necessarily with one player definitively, but was by committee with a couple of signings. And they chipped away at a couple other depth needs as well. So it's not to say that they ultimately had a bad day or a bad free agency. I think that they've done okay. We'll get to the big picture at the end, but I think that whatever this offseason ends up being, it could have been better.
Yeah, I get the appeal for DK. He's obviously an upgrade over what you've had in years, but I was good with the second and then that contract, like 5 years, $150 million.
But like eventually, here's my point. Eventually, you're going to have to give out that contract and make that trade. If you can't draft the guy,
I don't want to do it for DK. Like I would still much rather give it to. I'd much rather trade, and you're probably not going to have to do the second round pick because he's hurt. Yeah. But I would still rather do it for Brandon Ayuk, like a third and Kendrick Bourne or whatever that comes.
I don't think you're getting but I don't think you're getting the definitive answer with Brandon Ayuk. You're getting with DK Metcalf.
I think Ayuk's a better receiver.
We haven't seen him run since he tore 2 ligaments in his knee.
That's the question, but that's why you're getting them for cheaper. So I'd rather take that.
But that's the thing. It's if they're going to keep doing value at the position, you got Juju Smith-Schuster for cheaper because he'd blown his knee out or it damaged his knee significantly a few years before. You got other receivers that they try to tap into the previous few years. Devontae Parker you got for cheaper because he was older and he was clearly on the back half of his career. You can keep finding reasons to get guys for cheaper, but those all come with caveats. There is, again, a reason they're all cheaper, and it's going to show up on the field. I think unless they get it in the draft, which can still happen, but how many more swings are going to take at this thing? At some point, you're going to have to, swallow your pride and, hold your nose and take the medicine. Top 50 pick, top of the market contract. And like, I get maybe DK isn't the apex receiver. The apex receivers aren't even getting to the point where they're getting traded. They're getting re-signed. Jamar Chase is getting re-signed, no question. Justin Jefferson is getting re-signed, no question.
Who knows what's going on in Cincinnati?
All right, fair. But if Jamar Chase becomes available, it's going to cost you more than 38. But like at a certain point, I do think you just kind of have to suck it up, unless they can do it in the draft. Like it was 150 this year. Who knows what it'll be next year? $170 million contract and a top 50 pick. If you really want to get that top wide receiver, I think you're going to have to make that trade. And if you don't love Metcalf, fine. You're probably going to have to make it for somebody at some point.
So do you wish, you talk a lot about paying someone until they can't say no. And I know they offered Godwin reportedly 20 more than the deal he signed. Do you wish they threw an extra 10 million onto that and be like, what is your price to get you out of Tampa? Because, Godwin, he's lower level than DK or Ayuk, but he's still an upgrade again over anything you've had in years. And that's a guy, it sounded with DK, one of their big pressing points against was the personality. And, that room was such a mess last year. Like, is that the guy we want to pay 30 million to and then lead the room? Probably not. Like Godwin kind of feels like the opposite of that, where, he is a veteran, he's a leader, more in that mold. So would you have been more comfortable if they said, okay, Godwin, what is your literal price to get you out of there? We are willing to pay that to get you.
Maybe. I worry about the injury with Godwin. It's another one of those situations. Would I have gone, if the medicals checked out, my ceiling for him probably would have been 3 for 90, somewhere in there. And it sounds like they offered close to that. So you can't outright, like I had my number for Metcalf was 35 a year. Right. And he obviously came in just under that. Would he come in at 33, right?
Was it 5? Wasn't it 30? Or did it go up to 30?
30. My number in my and like I'm not a cap expert, but in my head, like the number was 35 based off what other players of the position are getting. My number for Godwin would have probably been 30. So maybe that's if they offered 20 more, that was the number that was out there. That brings you to 86. Was $4 million going to make the difference? I don't know. But yeah, I actually think in terms of Godwin, they handled it right, especially because doesn't it sort of seem like, and we'll get to Milton. I think Milton Williams isn't next, but like we'll get to Milton Williams. Does a part of you feel like they lost out on Godwin, recognized they were losing out on Williams, and said, all right, well, we're not giving this money to the receiver anymore. And then they kind of pushed all their chips in on Milton Williams to get him. Yeah. I don't know that they were getting both guys, right? I think it became a one or the other. It was clear they were out on Godwin and they were able to pivot. So in that regard, continuing to push Godwin. This is what we talked about at the combine. Would I have liked them to keep going a little bit more on Godwin? Maybe. But I also think there's something to be said for knowing when to walk away from the table and pivoting and adjusting on the fly. And I think maybe they did that, and that's why they ended up with Milton Williams.
Yep. So last thing, receivers, we'll talk a little bit later. We've said Ayuk, a lot of those trade targets we've been talking about. The one guy who might shake free here, who was a trade target, Cooper Kupp, looks like he's going to get released. I know he's not what he was. He's might be in the toaster. He's not fully toast yet, but he's getting there. But now that you don't have to give up draft capital for him, is Cooper Kupp maybe a little bit more enticing now that you missed on some of these other guys? He kind of is in that Chris Godwin mold, a veteran leader. He's going to help the room. He's going to help Drake May. Does Cooper Kupp become any more appealing for you now here?
A little bit. I definitely more if he's cut. Definitely more if he's cut.
Sounds like he's going to.
Well, so the Schefter report, everybody's saying like, oh, Schefter said he was cut. No, Schefter said that he's going to cut. They're begging somebody to trade for him. Because I think it's $20 million. It's a difference of $20 million.
Was it you who said they're trying to Christian Kirk this thing?
Yeah. And they keep like reminding us every 5 days. Because I feel like this is the 5th time we've seen this report. The Rams are going to cut Cooper Kupp if they can't trade him. Like just putting those reminders out there. I'm not against signing Cooper Kupp. I don't think he solves all their problems, but he would definitely help. I don't know that I would trade and take on because I think it's a $20 million hit each of the next 2 years. And that they have the money right now, but it does cut into your flexibility, especially if they're going to add a tackle on top of what they've already done. We are getting to the point now where they've spent enough where we can kind of like start to, you can't just go nuts anymore. But if you can get them in free agency for like $10 million, $12 million, I don't think it'd be a bad move. I don't think it would be as great as some people are talking about or in the context, but it would be a solid move.
Yeah. I don't know why New England would appeal to him right now, unless it's a lot of money, which, right. Someone will probably give him $10, $12 million if he gets to the open market. So if he would be up for it, sure. Like that's a fine move if he makes it to free agency, but if not,
so that's like, and this goes back to everything I've been saying. You offer him the most money and hope he takes it. And then some people will say, well, why don't you just trade for him to prevent getting into that bidding war? I think there's a decent chance that even overpaying him on the open market ends up being cheaper than taking on the $20 million.
Yeah.
Probably. So I let him hit the open market and see what happens. If somebody else trades for him, I don't know. I'm not losing sleep over that.
It's 33, whatever Cooper Kupp. Not a huge loss like Godwin is, but all right, let's get into today's signings then. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Prize Picks, where you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. And we know football season is over, but the sports roll on. The Boston Celtics are hot. Big win over the Lakers. So you can pick Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, more than points, assists, rebounds, or the Bruins. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, they only have like 15 games left, and who knows who's on their team anymore. But David Pastrnak is still there. You can go more on his goals, more on his points, all on Prize Picks. So make sure you download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Again, all over on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, back over to today's signings. Started a little slow. People were starting to get a little restless, getting a little worried, and then we got our first signing about an hour into the negotiation window.
Hour and a half, something like that. Yeah.
Robert Spillane, 3 years, $37 million deal. Familiarity. Josh McDaniels coached him in Vegas for a couple years. He's been a really key cog to that Vegas defense the last 2 years. Barely comes off the field. He's played over 1,000 snaps each year. He's played all 34 games, racks up the tackles. He is a little bit more of that smaller, more athletic linebacker that we figured they would shift to, but he's still good coming downhill in the run game. Just an energizer bunny on the field. He's a captain, so you get some veteran leadership there as well. So I thought that was a good addition along the second level there. But what'd you think of the Robert Spillane signing?
Underrated player, has been for a long time. And this is another one of those that we've been talking about, kind of nuts and bolts signings. If you're trying to do that Commanders model where he's not a superstar, he's not Fred Warner, and that's an unfair expectation, but he is emblematic of the shift they're making on defense. He's smaller. He's not small. I actually wasn't upset because, you lose Jamie and Sherwood. You end up with Spillane. Sherwood's 4 years younger. I think has some more upside, but I was worried about a 216-pound linebacker. I was. Spillane, not quite as athletic, but athletic, plays that game, but he does so at, what is he? I think 6'1", 229, 6'3", 229. I know the 229's in my head.
I might have it right here.
He's 6 and change, 229. And he's going to play sideline to sideline. He's going to contribute a little bit in coverage. He's going to be able to rush the quarterback.
6'1", 229.
6'1", 229. He's going to wear a lot of hats for them. And that's what they want in that off-ball linebacker position. He has experience with the coaching staff. He played for Mike Vrabel, played 2 games for the Titans, who signed him as a UDFA in 2018, also played a little bit for Josh McDaniels in Vegas. So he's going to kind of know the program. He's going to be somebody who can help set the tone. Solid, again, not, oh my God, Robert Spillane, here we go. But, a good, solid signing. And hopefully he brings the tinted visor with him from Vegas. That is a badass look.
And the arm sleeve.
Yeah, I can take or lose the arm sleeve. It's the tinted visor.
Okay. The visor's definitely better. But
you don't see that many guys that wear those anymore, especially like linebackers. It's mostly just offensive linemen and running backs at this point.
Well, we need someone. Does Harold Landry wear like is he going to get our red sleeves going? Who's got the red sleeves?
That was a Judon thing. Why do we have to keep that going? That was a fun thing for Matthew Judon. Let that be a Judon thing.
Fair. All right. We'll just do the visor. But yeah, I mean, Spillane, it's not like the sexy Dre Greenlaw or Zach Bond or, Jamie Sherwood, someone we've talked a lot about, but he is a good underrated player. And when, we like Juwan Bentley, the big question with him the past few years has just been, availability on the field. He's missed a lot of time with injuries. And this is a guy who does not come off the field at all. He's going to be out there all the time. So do you think this is bad news for Bentley and Jelani Tavai and that kind of group? Like, it's only one addition, so you'd imagine one of these guys is going to be here, but does this make it maybe a little bit easier to move off of a Jelani Tavai if that's the route they want to go?
I think Tavai, certainly. I think for Bentley, it's more about how will his role change, because it's going to change, right? He'll play next to Spillane a little bit. I wonder if this is an opportunity for them to move him down and play him more on the edge, which we've seen he can do at a really good level. I think he'll still be here at least this year. Yeah, Tavai, though, they want smaller, quicker linebackers, but there's still something to be said for having one guy that 3rd and 1, you want to have a 260-pound linebacker, trained on the tracks, coming downhill to meet the running back. And Bentley can definitely do that, and he has the versatility to do some other things as well. You don't need 2 of those guys, not in this defense. So I think this is probably it. Does he make it to camp and start camp? Possibly. I'm thinking at this point, though, there's not going to be a spot on the 53 for Jelani Tavai. Not that I necessarily thought that coming in free agency, but I think we now know the guy who's stepping in for him, right?
Yep. All All right, so that was Spillane. The next signing, let me pull it up here. We have a tackle, Alex Barth. We have a tackle. Morgan Moses, 3 years, $24 million deal. Now he is a right tackle, so we are still looking for that left tackle. But this is a guy we talked about. He's on the older side, 34, I believe he is, but he is a warrior. He plays a ton of snaps. He plays a physical brand of football. He plays through injuries. And this was a guy that we talked that said could be a really good complement or just pair to Caden Wallace, where you have these two guys and you feel like you're pretty set at the right tackle position going into next season. You know, pencil in Moses as your starter. You don't have to rush Caden Wallace along, but you still have him. He can develop behind the scenes. And you get to put Mike Onwenu at guard and just say stick at guard at your best spot, and we can move forward with that. That should be a good pairing, Onwenu and Morgan Moses on the right side. So I was a fan of this signing. And really with a lot of the offensive lineman contracts that dished out today, like I thought this was one of the best value signings along the offensive line today too. There was some big money getting thrown out. So I was a fan of the Morgan Moses signing. I thought that made a lot of sense for them. At right tackle, again, we don't need to be out there at OTAs and see him at left tackle. At right tackle, Morgan Moses makes a lot of sense.
That is a very important point. Let's not do this whole, well, you know, he's a good veteran tackle. No, he's played like 300 snaps out of 10,000 in his career on the right side. He's a right tackle. He's a good right tackle. Another guy that, again, not a superstar, but checks a lot of boxes. He's a veteran, which is good. He's a reliable player. He rarely comes off the field. Solid last year at age 33. He just turned 34. So they're getting him for his age 34 season. 16 pressures, 2 sacks allowed last year, 8 penalties. Like, that's solid work. I think now this locks Mike Onwenu into that right guard spot, like you just talked about. So if the right side figured out, I think they're going to have a lot of success running behind these two guys. And then Moses should help in pass pro as well. Leave him on the right side. Let's not screw around with that. But they did need to address right tackle, and they addressed it, and I think they addressed it well.
Yep, definitely agree. So now the big one, and it's I guess it
we
started.
Missed somebody. We missed my favorite signing of the day. What are you trying to do here, Brian?
Oh,
are we only doing line of scrimmage guys?
Was Davis?
Where's Carlton Davis?
Was he first?
He was before. I know he was before Milton Williams.
Oh, he was before Moses.
Davis and Moses were like back to back. Yeah, I figured maybe because they were really close together.
Sorry, I was going through the order. I guess I missed.
Let's not disrespect this man. His first day in New England.
This is your guy too. You've been talking about
my guy. This is the one guy I've been talking about. I may not have hit on DK Metcalf. I came close. I may not have hit on DK Metcalf, but I've been telling you about Carlton Davis for at least 6 months now.
Whenever we turned the page during the season to the offseason and we started talking about the offseason, you were on Carlton Davis, 3 years, $60 million deal, 34.5 guaranteed. This is another just really good fit. You figure to this defense again, familiarity. He was with Terrell Williams in Detroit last year, and you put him across from Christian Gonzalez. You know, this is a guy who's physical. He can play man coverage. His ball production is very good. You know, tons of seasons, double-digit pass deflections. So really good fit next to Christian Gonzalez, but this is your guy, so go off on Carlton Davis.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of it. It's a good signing. And on the money too. First of all, they weren't in a position where they needed to, count pennies and nickels, but the $60 million number, I think, caught a lot of people off guard, especially with DJ Reed, who is projected to be the top corner on the market, getting less, but 3 years, $34.5 million guaranteed. You got to look at the guaranteed money on days like today.
It sounds like a 2-year deal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's maybe a tiny bit over, but that's what they have to do to get guys. This is what we've been talking about. And like you said, not just a good player, but a really good fit for what they needed. Gives them size, gives them physicality on the boundary. If Jonathan Jones comes back now, you can kind of float him between the slot, between the boundary, between safety. Also gives them some experience. Another guy experience. Veteran leadership is won at a high level. Won a Super Bowl in Tampa with Brady. Went on a little bit of a run with the Detroit Lions last year. This has a chance to be, and he's only 28. Like, I thought he was older than that. He's only 28. This is a chance to be one of the better cornerback duos in the league. Now, some of that is just by default. Anybody in a duo with Christian Gonzalez, like Christian Gonzalez alone, you have a top 10 cornerback duo in the league, right? But Carlton Davis helps. He's going to be a significant improvement from what they had last year. He's going to help them in different sorts of matchups that they've struggled with, bigger receivers, things like that. This one always made a ton of sense to me. I didn't really get the DJ Reed rumors. Like, they didn't need another 5'9" boundary corner. Travarius Ward, stylistically, I wondered if it was a fit from the system. Carlton Davis checks about just every box you want to check. And again, not a superstar. He's not Darrelle Revis. He's not Stephon Gilmore, but he's going to come in and give you solid snaps week in and week out. He's generally healthy. I know he's missed a few games here or there the last few years, but I think he's played, 13 or 14 games every year of his career.
Yeah, so that was the big one. He's
another nuts and bolts guy.
He's never played more than 14 games in a single season. So,
but I don't think he's played. How often has he played like less than 12? It's not a lot.
He's played, he's played 12, 13, 14 every year except one. He played 10 in 2021. Okay. Last year was more of he broke his jaw on a tackle, which that's more of a fluky injury, but some of those knee injuries kind of has flared up for him. So that's the one thing with Carlton Davis is you could probably pencil him in for missing a couple games, but the fit is very good. I hope this means, they played a lot of man in the secondary in Detroit, and that was something where you look at the past Vrabel defenses, you're not really sure if that's the style they want to go to. So hopefully this signals they are wanting to play more of that man, because you want him in Christian Gonzalez in man coverage mostly.
These are two bona fide man shutdown corners. These are not guys that pick the ball off a lot. Well, so here's what's fun. These aren't guys that pick the ball off a lot because they don't play that kind of ball hawking style. They're generally more just about taking the receiver away and not allowing a throw. And they've been, for the most part, the number one corner on their respective teams. So opponents and quarterbacks have thrown away from them. Unless you're going to give the slot guy 20 targets, that's not really happening now. You're going to have to pick on one. And it's probably going to be Davis. But I think these two guys will complement each other well and help the on-ball production from each other. Certainly going to be, I know they added Harold Landry. I know they added Milton Williams. Carlton Davis helps the pass rush too. Like, let's not forget that, because you're going to have two shutdown guys on the outside. That should lead to a few more coverage sacks than they've had.
Definitely. So that was the big addition to the secondary. Again, good combination with Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez going forward. The big addition to the defensive line, and we can note we missed this off the start of the Monday preview. It started with a defensive line trade. They shipped Devon Godshaw out to the New Orleans Saints, got a future 7th.
We'll get to that when we get to Tonga.
Yeah, that's a good time to bring that up. But they did sign a big defensive tackle, the best defensive tackle available, maybe the best player available in free agency, in Milton Williams. It wasn't looking good. It looked like he was going to Carolina, and then they got on the phone. They threw some more money at him. 4 years, $104 million deal to Milton Williams. He's the highest paid player in franchise history now. This was something we talked a lot about. Milton Williams again. Felt like the best known secret coming out of the combine. Everyone was talking about Patriots in Milton Williams, and they got their guy. It was, again, a little rocky, but they got their guy. Big deal, big time player, still only 26 years old. I'm a big fan of Milton Williams, but thoughts on that deal there today?
Yeah, and what was the guarantee money, like 60 something?
Yeah, in the 60s.
Again, another deal with a little more of a gap between that guaranteed money and that total money. Seemed like this one was happening. Another sign that they're trying to get more aggressive and quick on defense. And Milton Williams certainly fits that. I think ideally it's him and Barmore in the middle, and that is going to be a really tough interior duo for offenses to stop. You're going to have some things that maybe aren't available against those two that would be available against most opponents. If Barmore can't go, you still have a guy that you can count on to kind of build that interior rush around. He can be a number one, but as a number two, he's outstanding. But I think that's sort of the plan there. The question is going to be, this is a guy that really only played about 55% of the time in Philly. He was a passing down player. You're not giving a guy $104 million. You're not making a guy the highest paid defensive player in the history of the franchise to play him 55% of the time. They're going to play him more against the run, and we'll see what that looks like. And that's going to be the big question, is how he adjusts to a 3-down role. But a massive boost for their pass rush, especially. I really hope, I hope Christian Barmore is okay, because I hope he's okay, right, as a person. Yeah. But on top of that, like him and Milton Williams in the middle would be so much fun to watch. And I really hope we get a chance to see that, because that could be I just kind of hyped up the duo, right, of Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. No, the best positional duo on the team, without question, would be Milton Williams and Christian Barmore.
That's game-wrecking stuff. If both of those guys are healthy and on top of their game, like that is scary. And then you have Harold Landry on the edge to clean it all up, and Keon White on the other side to do that. So you did mention he's never played over 50% of snaps in a season for Philly because they have so many defensive tackles that they're able to cycle through there. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, even Moro Ojuma there this year took on a decent sized role. So that's the big question. You know, he's a 296 pound defensive tackle. What's he going to look like in a 3-down role? You know, I think Christian Barmore in 23 played about 66% of the snaps. So maybe that's what you're looking at.
I'm thinking like 65, 70, somewhere in that range.
That's probably what you're hoping Milton Williams can give you and keep this level of play. It was interesting. You know, last year he absolutely took off as a pass rusher. Like 54 pressures was a career high. His pass rush win rate was top 3 or 4 among defensive tackles, but the 2 years prior, he was still a good pass rusher, but he was one of the more efficient kind of run defenders in the league. And then he takes off as a pass rusher and he loses a little bit of that run defense. So that will be interesting. You know, if Terrell Williams and Vrabel and their defensive line coach can kind of strike that balance where, okay, now he's playing more snaps. Can we get him to be a more well-rounded player? But Williams was number 1 or number 2 on my board, you know, Chris Godwin, but really happy they got that done. And credit to them. You know, they said they were going to be aggressive. That is being aggressive, where it looks like you're going to lose a player and then you go back to them, you circle back, throw them some more money, huge deal, franchise record, and you secure your guy there on the defensive line.
I will say that you mentioned being a top of your board. Player top of my board still out there, still available.
The top of your board is still out there?
Yeah. Who's Javon Holland hasn't signed, right?
Oh, no, he hasn't. I forgot about that.
Like, I'll because we're going to kind of move on to offense players. No, there's always 1 or 2 guys that randomly make it to like late Tuesday, early Wednesday. If anything, it makes me feel better because maybe the money's not out there that he wants, and now the Patriots can kind of swoop in and get him without a massive overpay. I know Taylor's been big on this, like in Mike Vrabel's philosophy about the spine of the defense, right? Your defensive tackles, your middle linebacker, your deep safety, and just setting it up. Not thinking front to back, but side to side, right in the middle of the field. Milton Williams, Robert Spillane, Javon Holland. I mean, they remake the spine of the defense, and they do that in a massive, massive way. So I think they've had a very good day. You put Javon Holland and for other reasons, Cam Robinson on top of that. Like, you give me one of those 2 more, they knock this thing out of the, like, it's good. It's solid right now. It's solid. You give me one of Cam Robinson or Javon Holland, and now it's like, okay, that, like, take a bow. Step back, take a bow. That would be taking it to another level.
Okay. Safety market's been pretty healthy, too. I'm surprised Holland is still out there. Like, Bynum got a good payday.
I checked. I don't know. I mean, I haven't checked in like since we've been on, really.
I'm on. So NFL top 100 free agents, they do update it. I don't know how quickly they do update it, but he is still up there. He is there.
I feel like we would have heard.
He's their 3rd best.
Like, in a second.
He's NFL's 3rd best free agent available behind Byron Murphy and Amari Cooper, which is interesting. But
I don't know about Amari Cooper there. Javon Holland, it does still appear is available.
So yeah, but there have been some safeties going. So interesting. We'll see what Javon Holland's market is, but yeah, Milton Williams, obviously the big one of the day. And I also found it interesting. You know, we talk a lot with, targeting players who come from a really good defense, like in a really good defensive line. It was interesting that a lot of people were targeting Milton Williams over Josh Sweat. And it wasn't just the Patriots. You know, we didn't hear much with the Patriots and Josh Sweat, but the Cardinals were one of the other teams in on Milton Williams. And then Milton Williams signed with New England, and then they pivot to Josh Sweat. So maybe makes it feel a little bit better that other teams are targeting. They're saying like, okay, this guy is probably more likely to replicate his success elsewhere. I thought that was just a little interesting thing.
Yeah, the Patriots were on both sides of that, right? They get Carlton Davis. I'll actually know the Lions signed DJ Reed after Carlton Davis. So I know they were on it with, we'll get to Mack Hollins, but yeah,
All right, so that was Milton Williams, but sticking with that defensive line group, they also signed. Do you know how to say his first name? Kyrus? Kyrus?
Yeah, I think it was Kyrus. I
Tonga.
looked this
We'll
up
just call him
earlier.
Tonga. 1 year, $2.7 million deal. Now, this is the opposite body type of Milton Williams. This is your bigger defensive tackle, nose tackle. Like, this is your Devon Godshaw rotational replacement. Again, $2.7 million for 1 year. So he's going to have to make the team out of camp. But if he does that, you ship Devon Godshaw out for a future 7th round pick. Weren't expecting much in that. You made it aware that he was going to go elsewhere, but you did need some size along the interior there as a rotational guy. So they get that in Tonga there.
I was literally, we kind of thought we were wrapping up for the day, and I was talking to people about, the one thing aren't they getting a little small on defense? Boom, Kyrus Tonga signed. So he'll have a chance. My guess is that they'll draft a bigger defensive tackle as well. And those two will battle it out for that run stopping role, or maybe they keep both if the roster works out that way. But they needed somebody on 3rd and 1 they can put in the middle, plug a gap. He can certainly do that. That's probably all he's going to do. This is a guy that's going to play maybe 30% of the time. But the deal reflects that. The money reflects that. And that's total, not guaranteed. They need a run stopper, and they got one. And a lot of run stopping is just size and willpower. And he certainly has both. So, yeah, this was it's not going to grab any headlines, but you talk about rounding out the roster. This is a guy that helps you round out the roster.
Definitely. So,
and he does it. Sorry, and he does it for Devon Godshaw's on this big money contract. He was kind of tied in with, if they're trying to move on from the past, was a vocal leader of the team the last couple of years. Just lets you hit the reset button and do so at a much more reasonable price.
Yeah. And shout out to Devon Godshaw. I think he was getting another new contract.
Yeah. And he gets to go home too, which is pretty cool.
So yeah, that's cool. But another spot where, we've talked a lot about, this is a strength in the draft, and Elliott Wolf, and I think Vrabel even said that as well. So another spot where you would hope they hit in the draft, especially if the future of Christian Barmore it is in question, another defensive lineman, or there's still some in free agency, like I learned how to say his name and now I forget. Levi Unzarike, I think think how you say it. He's still out there, so maybe if the market isn't there for some of those free agents, they could still add another guy there. But those are more still in the pass rushing mold. Tonga, bigger body, they could add that in the draft as well. But that is defensive line. That's the whole defense. So Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, or Harold Landry last night, then Milton Williams and Tonga, maybe 5 starters there, or four starters there on the defense. So you rework that unit. A few other minor ones to wrap up the offense. Another quarterback is in the fold. Josh Dobbs, 2-year, $8 million deal. Familiarity. He was with Mike Vrabel for a little bit in 2022 in Tennessee. He spent some time in Cleveland with Ashton Grant, the quarterback coach as well. So Brand Josh Dobbs, veteran in the room, kind of a skill set that matches the room as well. More of a mobile guy. So just Josh Dobbs, QB2, QB3, will battle out with Joe Milton. Do you read anything into Joe Milton's future with this signing, though?
It certainly gives them more flexibility if they want to move Milton, having another backup. But I also think a lot of teams just carry 3 quarterbacks now. Yep. It's what they do, and
especially with the emergency
quarterback, right? And Josh Dobbs gives you that. He's 30 years old. He's been in the NFL. He's going into his 6th year. He's not Jacoby Brissett, but he gives you a veteran in the room. I could see them keeping all 3. Also, it's nice to have a literal rocket scientist in the room when the other 2 quarterbacks' arms are rocket launchers. That helps. I don't think this guarantees anything with Joe Milton. I don't think this guarantees he stays. I don't think this guarantees he moves. It's definitely a little more flexibility, but I don't think they're going to move Joe Milton just to move him, right? I've said this. Moving Joe Milton for a 4th or 5th round pick doesn't really do anything. If somebody's going to blow you away, great. But, keeping depth at quarterback, especially when Drake May had some trouble staying healthy last year, bringing a veteran into that room, being able to maximize that emergency quarterback spot. I'm not entirely convinced that this isn't about just wanting to have 3 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah. I agree with you. I don't think it makes sense to just give Milton away right now, because I don't think you're going to get, a lot of people like to say like a day 2 pick. I don't think that's his market right
No,
now.
Kenny Pickett went for
A 5th in
a 5th
DTR
and a backup quarterback. So like, I think Milton's worth more than Pickett. I don't think he's worth a ton more than Pickett right now. It's Kenny Pickett was a 1st-round pick and like has a full season worth of starts, or more than a full season worth of starts of tape out there that's available. Joe Milton was a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick that has 1 game of tape essentially. So the market's not there to move Joe Milton right now, I don't think. But again, like they were always going to need another quarterback. I thought it would just be a camp arm. But if they want to keep 3, like Josh Dobbs, a solid 3rd quarterback for the role that is, he's a good player to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we were looking for. A veteran who kind of matches the skill set of what you have. And that's what you have in Josh Dobbs. And, he might know some of the offense with the overlap from those previous coaches as well. So
yeah.
The last depth signing here in free agency, we have a wide receiver, Mack Hollins, 2-year deal, $8.4 million worth up to $10.4 million, as you see on the bottom of the screen there. Bigger body, really good special team player. Again, had a good year with Josh McDaniels in Vegas. I think it was interesting too. Mike Reese pointed out that his best game came against Mike Vrabel's Titans that year too. I think he had like 8 catches for 150 yards. So
he was also that game against the Patriots that year. He wasn't that statistically dominant. He had 4 for 40 and a touchdown, but those were 4 huge catches in that. That was the Jacoby Myers lateral game. Like he was.
Didn't he down a punt at like the 1 yard line?
He downed a punt, which is why I tweeted that night, future Patriot Mack Hollins.
Oh, that was that night. I didn't know.
That was that night because it was one of those things where I'm like, all right, so this guy he's got good size. He makes situational catches and he plays special teams. Yeah, Bill's going to love this guy. Now, it didn't happen with Bill, but I'll take my victory lap anyway.
Yep. So not expecting much from him, though, offensively. I don't think you want to expect much from him offensively, right? If he can give you a couple snaps here and there, but you don't want to be relying on him. If you're relying on him, things probably went south. But yeah. I know, another veteran seems like a good, I know he can be kind of corny at times with some of those outfits and the barefoot stuff, but does seem like the locker rooms he's in, like he's a well-liked guy. And we talked about that too. Like that wide receiver room was a mess last year. Let's get a veteran in there. Even if he's not the most productive guy, you get that in Mack Hollins. He can chip in when you need him. He's a special teamer. He's got an interesting TikTok page for anyone who needs home maintenance and time hack help. So go check out his TikTok page, but low value signing, just fine at this point for Mack Hollins.
Yeah. I know some people are pretty worked up about this one way or the other. Some people love it. Some people hate it. It's intriguing that he had a good season with Josh McDaniels, but I'm pretty lukewarm on this one. Like they still obviously need to do a ton of wide receiver. He checks some boxes they didn't have checked. He gives them size, which they didn't have. He gives them more experience. His 112 games are more than any receiver they currently have on the roster, 112 NFL games. So like, that's good. Play special teams. Like there's a role for him here for sure. As Devin points out, give you something in the red zone. But it's not, they're going to unlock Mack Hollins and this is going to fix the pad. No, he's going to be back into the depth chart guy, play special teams. He's going to be used situationally as a wide receiver. I got him for like a little more than $4 million a year. So yeah, it's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it.
That's a great way to put it.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we're relying on him on offense, something probably went badly.
I feel like it's kind of a meh. It's a hard signing to meh because the personality is so engaging. But just looking at the football player, like
I think that's what scares a lot of people off. Or what
I don't really care. It doesn't seem like he's a bad guy. He's kind of goofy. He doesn't like wearing shoes. As long as he doesn't get sick because of it, I don't really care.
Which he lasted in Buffalo, so he should figure it out here.
It's fine signing. It's fine.
Yep. All right. So those are the signings from today, right? We hit on all of them. I don't think we missed any.
Unless they did something in the last minute or two.
There hasn't been any since Mack Hollins. So
he usually dies down around 9:00. So I think we're safe. And then again, it is this podcast, so who knows?
right when we log off, though, someone will sign. So
if they sign Javon Holland, I'm making you jump back on to do like the morning show. Just no, I'm not kidding. Okay, I'm not kidding.
That's fair. So let's talk about that. Javon Holland is still out there. Some other guys are still out there. We're still looking at wide receiver. We're still looking at left tackle. Some big left tackle contracts were given out today. Dan Moore got paid. The backup from San Fran, I'm blanking on his Jalen Moore, I think it is. He got paid a good deal to go to Kansas City. So Cam Robinson is still out there. You know, you're talking Javon Hollins. There's not much in the receiver market. You know, most of those guys went, but anyone that's out there that's still interesting you that says tomorrow or right when we log off this show, you want to go make a push for with, I don't know, you know, again, you're right. We don't know how much money is left. Like, you're not throwing bags. Not that there's anyone really besides Holland.
They might have one more bag left.
They might have one more bag.
They had 130 million, and
I know, they had so much money.
The guaranteed money on a lot of these contracts, like there's 40 million unguaranteed in Milton Williams contract. So who knows how much of that's going to hit the cap. I'm pretty much at Cam Robinson and Javon Holland. A guard wouldn't be a bad idea, but I think most of the starting caliber guards signed, if I recall. I don't know who's available there. Maybe a slot corner, but that's, I think, something you can easily address in the draft.
Like Tevin Jenkins is available.
Oh, he didn't sign. Yeah, I wouldn't hate that, but that's another thing I think you can get in the draft. Like slot corner, guard are two spots I wouldn't hate seeing them address, but they can draft those players. It's Cam Robinson because they need a tackle. Like they need a tackle, and then I'm still in on that Javon Holland thing because it would be a ton of fun to put him. I mean, the offense is going to have questions without a left tackle, and we're going to do Will Campbell arm length for the next month and a half if they don't sign Cam Robinson. Like, that's back on the table. I know people don't want to hear that. I'm not even necessarily saying it would be the right pick, but that conversation is 100% back on the table. And Mark Daniels kind of tweeted something along those lines today that that's a real possibility. So if they don't get Cam Robinson, you worry about the offense. But if they add Javon Holland to this defense, like, there's a really good defense all of a sudden. Like, they did a ton on that side of the ball to tune it up, which would be sick. So, but I'd be happy if they got Cam Robinson too. I know he struggled last year, especially after the trade. I don't think he's great, but I think as a 1-year bridge, like the options after him, you're kind of entering guys that are sort of in Vidarian Low territory, and you're probably just doing another competition there. And I don't think any of us want to do that, you know, depending on what they do in the draft. So give me one of those two. Both would be great. I don't know if both are realistic at this point, but I think they can get one. I probably should say I prefer Robinson because that's ultimately what's better, but Javon Holland would just be a really cool addition.
Yeah, I'm with you with Robinson. I would still like a guard. Will Fries is still available, as Pat Stat says. McCarty went off the board, who was one of my favorites. He was he went to Jacksonville. So Jenkins, Mekhi Becton, who you'd have to flip sides. And I
don't know about Becton on the left side. That's a tough one.
I still think he's going to end up back in Philly, but maybe, you know, Jenkins, they like, you know, he worked with Hal Tailing in Chicago last year. Then Robinson at tackle. I still like Onwuzurike on the defensive line. Maybe one of those edge guys too. You know, Azeez Ojulari is out there. He has some familiarity with the staff. Just add one more kind of speed rusher on the edge there. So still some guys. Oh, and as Diego points out, Coy Cronk is still out on the market, so they could go get Coy.
Go sign Coy. There's your bag. They got to go get Coy Cronk.
Exactly.
As I said before, there's always a couple great players that somehow make it to Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep. And then someone said Jedrick Wills. That's probably the best tackle left outside of Cam Robinson.
I'm out on Jedrick Wills. I know Vrabel was there last year. It ended bad for Wills there. Like, they should know. I'm good on Wills.
It does feel like they are moving off Joey Sly. Someone asked what the kicker market's like. Not much out there, really. Like, it's Nick Folk, it's Austin Seibert, it's Michael Badgley. Like, there's not much out there, but it doesn't seem like they're in a rush to bring Joey Sly. They still do have Parker Romo, so maybe they just add competition after the draft at some point in there. So still some guys.
Yeah, Mike Reese kind of made it sound like that. Like that was the plan.
Yeah, so still some guys left out there. to sign a bunch of different positions. You kind of hit on it. Last thing I wanted to ask you, you kind of hit on it talking about the left tackle there in Will Campbell, but did what happened today change your view for the draft, right? Like they signed a bunch of defensive players. Do you think this is going to be another all offensive draft, or with that first pick, like, are you feeling Will Campbell is more likely, or, the favorite now, Mason Graham, maybe less now that you have Milton Williams in there, but did today change your mind about the draft moving forward?
Yeah, definitely out on Mason Graham at this point. It sounds like Will Campbell's still an option. I think too, like if Mack Hollins is the kind of receiver they want, but they maybe want that guy at the top of their depth chart, I think we should be talking a whole lot more about Ted McMillan. And the way this wide receiver market is developing, there was some rumors at the combine that the Patriots were maybe higher on him than expected. After all of this, right, the two clear-cut like when the draft ended last year, not even into the summer, like late last spring, we knew the Patriots' two biggest needs were left tackle and receiver, and the two clear-cut guys at those positions at that time, like the best in the draft, were Ted McMillan and Will Campbell. That was, it seemed like, all right, if things go as expected, we're just choosing between McMillan and Campbell, and that's going to be the argument throughout the year. Obviously, it didn't go as expected. A lot changed, yet here we are, and we may very well have come all the way back around to, all right, it's McMillan and Campbell. Who are you taking?
Oh, man.
Like, what a long trip just to get back to the place where that's where we started a year ago. Was McMillan and Campbell, and we went through Mason Graham, we went through Tyler Warren, we went through Ashton Genty, Kelvin Banks, and now here we are, we're back.
A lot of veteran quarterback signings, except with the Giants and the Browns, and I feel like with the Carlton Davis edition, we are in the camp, which what we've been saying for a while, and in our first mock draft, if Travis Hunter's there and he's the pick, he's probably playing mostly wide receiver now for this team.
Yeah, I still don't think he's going to be there. Titans haven't gotten a quarterback either, so
I don't
know if they'll take one. I don't think so.
We're talking Mac Jones, and they were talking Mac Jones and Zach Wilson.
Yeah, those are your guys you're going to get, so the rookie quarterback can beat him out and convincingly win the job.
Well, they already have Will Levis. By the way, they have Will Levis to do that for him.
How about it's different when it's a guy you just signed versus a guy you drafted. How about the Dolphins giving Zach Wilson a fully guaranteed contract? Like anytime you can give Zach Wilson fully guaranteed money, it's just smart business. We all know that.
So the Patriots, you can pencil at least 3 wins in when Tua gets hurt and they have to play Zach Wilson, and then the Jets sign Justin Fields. So that should be 2.
No, Justin Fields turned him up,
gave him the work in that Monday night.
That night that we didn't know it, but kind of unofficially ended the a couple of errors. Yeah. He gave him that work one time. So let's not. Zach Wilson, yes, those are a couple wins.
So some AFC, some movement there in the quarterback world. Anything? Just last thing here. Anything around the league stand out to you? Any move you really like? Or were confused by?
Kind of related. You see that the contracts these veteran quarterbacks are getting, some of the veteran quarterback trades that happened. Teams are panicking to not have to dip into this quarterback class in the draft, I think. And it tells you the league is not high on these quarterbacks.
Yep.
Which does not help the Patriots, but
I don't know what Seattle's doing. That was weird, but the whole
I am 2 for 2 on my quarterback projections.
Darnold and
so here's what I had. I had Fields to the Jets, and I did this Sunday morning. Fields to the Jets, Russ back to the Steelers, Kirk to the Browns, Titans sticking with Will Levis, the Giants signing Aaron Rodgers and drafting either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, the Vikings signing Daniel Jones, and the Seahawks signing Sam Darnold. So 2 down.
How about Daniel Jones holding up the market right now, apparently?
Well, at the beginning of the day, it was Justin Fields holding up the market, which again tells you, look, I don't mean to antagonize our very loyal listeners and viewers who I do appreciate, but to all the Marvin Harrison and Joe Alt people, imagine if we were doing a quarterback this offseason.
Oh boy.
Imagine if adding a quarterback was the thing this offseason. It would be I'm glad we're not doing that. Let me put that way.
What are you doing?
Really glad we're not doing that.
30 million guaranteed to Justin Fields, or 100 million to Sam Darnold, or buying out Kirk Cousins?
I hate it. I'd probably kind of be pounding the table for Aaron Rodgers. I think I might be.
Rodgers?
Because I think he has both the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. So I kind of look at that as like either we're going to be good or we're going to have a high enough pick next year.
Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. One more. They keep coming in. Thoughts on the Laramie Tunsil trade? Rare starting left tackle trade.
Very rare. Yeah.
Probably worth talking about. It was a future second and fourth and a this year third for Tunsil and a fourth. I believe I got that correct. So kind of a weird trade, but the Commanders go out and get a starting left tackle in Laramie Tunsil through the trade market. Just turned 30. So I probably would have been in on this if I was the Patriots.
I think so too. The fact it's future picks also tells you how teams feel about this draft. It would have been nice to see the Patriots in on something like that. I wonder if it had been a current pick, if they could have done it. But yeah, I probably would have done that if I was Patriots. We'll see what they do at left tackle now, but that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what Houston's doing. Just
I mean, let's give CJ Stroud a worse line. That'll help.
They already cut Shaq Mason, who I know wasn't, prime Shaq Mason style last year, but he was still a good guard, and now they're cutting Laramie Tunsil. So that could impact New England if we're not going tackle with number 4 overall. If you're looking to move back up for a tackle, Houston at 25 or 26 there in the draft, like more likely that they're going to take a left tackle. So that might be a spot you have to jump or get around if you're looking to trade back up into the first round for a left tackle in the draft there. So interesting move by Houston there. Oh, someone mentioned they have Blake Fisher. Maybe they shift him over to left tackle, but
I guess. See,
who
Kyle
knows?
Juszczyk got cut.
Did he really?
Yeah. I'd make that call.
I like Kyle Juszczyk.
You know what? I like Robbie Utes, but if Kyle Juszczyk's available.
Interesting. All right. So Patrick Ricard and Kyle Juszczyk is in free agency. Good fullback market. Yeah. But all right. Any last thoughts, or we will wrap this up?
I think I'm good.
All right. Somehow we kept it to just over an hour. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So we will wrap it up there. We'll be back tomorrow to break down any other moves. Someone also keep asking when our next mock draft is. Zach, we see you. That's probably next Thursday, right? That's when we usually do it.
Yeah.
Next Thursday. So we'll let kind of the free agency settle. We'll recap it throughout the week, throughout next week, and then early next week, and then next Thursday, we'll do our first mock draft. But the rest of this week is free agency, so we'll be back tomorrow, probably around the same time, but we will let you guys know on Patriots CLNS on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to Patriots Press Pass, turn on your notifications, like and rate the channel. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thesportshub.com for all his Patriots free agency coverage there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots free agent coverage there as well. Thank you everyone for tuning in with us tonight, and we will see you guys tomorrow.